Hello, everybody from all over the world. We have an amazingly interesting group of more than 2,400 people at the moment and more joining. So there will be lots and lots of interesting things to talk about. So what I'm going to do for about 45 minutes is take you through the year ahead. And this is an effort I go through every year. I've done this about 20 years, and it's not just me kind of pontificating on things that I think are going on. It's based on all the research we've done over the prior year and the things we see going ahead. And you all see a lot of this. And so you will recognize some of these ideas, but they're going to be in a new context. There are three assets here. You can get the report, you can get the infographic, and there is a micro course that's a 6-session little mini course you can take on these materials. And the reason we do this is we really want this to be a tool for you to use to talk about within your companies, to talk about within your teams, to look at for your own professional development, not just a list of predictions. So there's 4 big themes that we're sitting on right now as we come into the new year. The first is we'll talk about labor market. We are going to have a difficult hiring market. You'll see more on that. The economy is probably going to do reasonably well this year. And due to the fertility rate and the aging of the baby boomers and the retirement of baby boomers, virtually every country, a developed country at least, is going to have a shortage of labor. We'll talk about that in a minute. The second is transformation. The PwC 2024 CEO survey, 60% of CEOs now believe that their company as it exists will not be around in 10 years. That was 49% last year. So the rate of change and the pace of transformation has accelerated. That has a huge impact on what we do. We are a part of responding to that. I'll talk about that in terms of the dynamic organization in a minute. Number 3, of course, is AI. I'm going to talk about AI as much as I can. You know that we're into this. We've spent a lot of time on it. We're offering you AI through Galileo, and you're going to be very involved in AI in many, many ways, as is your entire company. And then the fourth is a completely different mindset for employees. The essential change is coming out of the trauma of the pandemic. By the way, we're still getting COVID. I mean, everybody I know has COVID right now. People are saying to themselves, and this is all ages, but primarily younger people, you know, I don't want to work so hard. I may not want to climb the corporate ladder, make my life better. I'm happy to work on something that's good. But if I don't like what I'm doing, I'm going to find something else to do. And given the job market, they're going to quietly quit or leave. There are 15 predictions. I call them maybe predictions or imperatives in the report. And in the report, you will also find detailed analysis and research in each one. And then at the end, there is an action planning guide with a series of questions you can use in your group, in your company, in your team, to walk through how you want to address these issues, because not every company is going to focus on all 15 things, but I'm going to hit through most of these on the webcast. Okay, so let me start with the labor market. You've probably all seen us talk about the post-industrial world. Well, we're witnessing it right now. You're witnessing it happen before your eyes. This is a chart of unemployment. And we all believed, certainly I did, you know, prior in earlier parts of my career, that unemployment was just cyclical. You know, when we had a good economy, unemployment was low. When we had a bad economy, unemployment was high. No, that's not true. There is a secular decline in unemployment. It's going down. It's now at 3.8%. It went down as low as 3.4%. This is an effect of the productivity growth that's going on around the world, the fertility rate I talked about earlier, the retirement of the baby boomers, and just general demographics in developed countries. But while that has happened, GDP has gone up. If you look at this chart, it's actually fascinating. The red line is GDP, the blue line is unemployment rate, and the aqua line is the number of people working. And you can see, this is US, that in the United States, we have not really grown the workforce much, a little bit each year. Now, the labor participation rate goes up and down, but it's a very tiny variation. And what this is showing you is increases and increases and increases in productivity. Productivity is going to be a big theme this year. And because this sort of little equation here is going to get worse. And the reason this is happening is historic. Just really good paper I'm really proud of called The Post-Industrial Economy that explains this, is that companies were originally founded as small groups of artisans in the agrarian age or farmers, and they scaled by human scale. So if I want to milk twice as many cows, I need twice as many milkers. If I'm a weaver and I want to weave twice as much wool, I need twice as many weavers. And so we had a linear growth with business growth or GDP by human beings, double the number of human beings, double the number of growth. Along comes the industrial age. We have electricity, we have steam engines, we have automation, and all of a sudden things scale up. And we have machines and automation to improve the scalability of our companies. And we designed many, many of the HR practices we have today from the industrial age. I'm going to show you a picture of Jack Welch in a few minutes. Things like succession management, job families, career hierarchies, pay for performance, cascading goals, even balanced scorecard, stuff that I used to read about when I was first starting in business, really comes from this model where we had hierarchical industrial companies. And by the way, people retired in their 60s during the industrial age. And so they didn't move around between companies or between industries very often at all. Along comes computers, along comes mainframes, PCs, and other forms of technology. And all of a sudden we realize, we can make money because of our data. And if we're a better information company, we can sell more stuff. We can understand our supply chain better. ERP became big. I mean, I was at IBM when ERP started, and the CIO became sort of the king of the company in one of the most important roles. We had a war for skills during that period of time. And then as the internet came along, we had a war for digital skills. And the internet really changed it even more, because what happened with the internet was it was very easy to change jobs. I graduated from college in 1978. And when I graduated from college, you typed a resume on a piece of paper with a typewriter, by the way. If you made a mistake, you whited it out, you stuck it in an envelope, and you mailed it to a company, and you waited and hoped that you might get a call. By the way, there was no email in the early days about a job. Well, or you got a letter back. Well, of course, now that we had internet recruiting and LinkedIn and Monster and all of those, all you could change jobs very quickly. So in the information age, we suddenly suffered from retention problems, and people started to do job hopping, and job hopping was considered to be good, not bad. And now it's even worse. I mean, now obviously most young people will have 7, 8, 9, 10 employers in their career, whereas certainly in my early days it was 1 or 2. But it's going to get even faster, because in this new era, what we're entering now, we have vast amounts of white collar automation in AI, not just blue collar automation. And so even the lawyers, the analysts, the writers, the marketing professionals are going to see massive productivity improvements while we have this shortage of workers. And what that leads to is this, and that is an increasing curve of productivity growth. This is the history of productivity measured by GDP per employee by country. And you can see during the agrarian age, it was flat, didn't grow at all. It was sort of a flat line. And then as cars and manufacturing equipment came along, it steeped up, too. And it's going to go steeper and steeper and steeper. And the question you're going to have to answer in your company is, where are you on this curve? Because as I'm going to show you in a minute, if your company falls behind on this curve, you're not going to see it coming. Somebody's going to come up your tailpipe and take your business away at a rate you can't really address. And the real story here is the super workers, is really the superhuman power that every worker now has. The manufacturing worker has machines. The office worker has AI. The HR professional has AI. We'll talk about that too. And the company with the fastest ability to take advantage of this technology and use it, and obviously understand their customers and have a great culture, is going to win. Now, while all that's going on, we have a really changed employee base. And I think most of you know this, but the statistics are just staggering. This goes on month after month after month. I see the same statistics. Yesterday, I read the new Gallup engagement research they do with, all over the world. Employment engagement is down again. It went up a little bit during the beginning of the pandemic, and it's down. And a lot of the issue is people feeling burned out. Remote work is hard. I mean, it's hard to feel connected to people when you're on the end of a video call. People have suffered mental health challenges, productivity challenges, disconnected. People leave companies much more easily. And this affects their perception of value of their career. Interestingly enough, for young people, they're looking at work differently. If you look at that chart in the center, that 69% of baby boomers believe they go above and beyond the job every day. That's me, that's my age. I mean, we kind of went to work with this, mentality that, if you don't hustle, you're not going to get ahead. Only 43% of Gen Zs agree with that. And 52% of Gen Zs and millennials are growing disenchanted with the 9-to-5 lifestyle. So things like the 4-day work week are going to come. This is going to happen. And I'll show you the experimentation on that. It's actually pretty cool. Look at what really people do want in a job. It's not as different as you might imagine. They want to grow their career. 83% of companies believe that is the number one reason they will change their job. Number two, they want a sense of empowerment. They want a sense of flexibility. They want a sense of autonomy. There's this idea of job crafting, that you make the job doesn't make you. In the old days, you fit yourself to the job. Now the job fits itself to you and you implement it in the way you want. And the third is they want to work in companies and jobs where they feel like they're having some positive impact. And these are not necessarily brand new ideas, but they're critical issues in this labor shortage. The other thing I'll just say is, Mark and Terry and the rest of us here, we talk to lots and lots of companies. We're sort of like microeconomists. We're hearing stories of issues in companies, dozens and dozens of companies per week. Everybody is facing the same issues. I would say these 9 things in here, I hear them in every single organization. So this is a commonly understood issue, and that's why these solutions are repeatable from industry to industry. Now, in the middle of all that, we also have a very different way of designing our companies. Now, this chart comes from actually the 2016 Human Capital Trends when I was at Deloitte. That was 7 years ago. And at the time, it was more of an idea than really a reality. And only a few percentage of companies define themselves on the right. Today, virtually everybody operates in a flattened organization, people working on multiple projects, cross-functional collaboration being critical to success, dynamically spinning up new groups, shutting down other groups, moving people around the organization. This is just the way post-industrial companies work. I'm going to show you an example of one in a minute. And the reason, of course, they do this is we don't make money by scale anymore. We make money by time to market, speed to market, closeness to customers, product innovation. And if you can't move quickly to take advantage of new technologies or market changes, your margins go down, your revenue starts to decline, and you can buy other companies. But even when you buy other companies, you have to go through the same process of integrating them. Well, this new world changes HR a lot. It changes the architecture of our systems. In the pre-industrial age or in the industrial age, by the way, all the ERP systems, Workday, Oracle, SAP, are designed for the left, virtually all of them. There's only a few that are designed for the right. We had a job which was basically a container, and we defined a job. We defined the level, the title, the competencies required for this job, supposedly, and we slotted people into it, and you applied for the job. And then we managed the job through our HR systems as the way we ran the company. And that actually started to fall apart 10 years ago when all of a sudden people were doing things that we didn't have job titles for. Because let's face it, whatever your job is, and it's certainly true in our company, it really doesn't matter what the title is, because day to day you're going to do different things, and it's going to change over time because of things that go on in the company and new needs and changes in the systems and technologies and so forth we do. So we need a new model. And the reason skills are so important is we're moving to a people-centric architecture. In a people-centric architecture, you have a much more flattened organization. We move people around. They work on cross-functional projects. We promote them and pay them and develop them based on skills, not jobs. It's a very, very different way of thinking about it. And we have different technology underneath it. And if you read the post-industrial paper, you'll see a little more details on what this differentiation really is. We're also in a world where workers are not abundant. We can't slot them in and out of jobs the way we did before because it's so hard to hire them. The average time to hire, based on the research we did last year, is almost 50 days on average. And in many cases, it's 60, 70, 80 days. So we have to take care of and manage and help every person in the company and think about the organization as a network of people, not a network of jobs. Now, the way this manifests itself, I'll just take one more minute on this and then we'll get into the predictions. is through different organizational structures. And what Kathy Enderis and I did the last year, and we published this in the fall, is we wrote a very comprehensive study on this, and we looked at the financial performance of the companies that are taking advantage of this more, what we call dynamic organization. There's a fair number of companies. You can see 7% at the very top, 24% up there. Their outcomes are extraordinarily higher than their peers. Now, we do these charts all the time. We do these for all of our major studies where we look at the financial, people, and innovation outcomes of the top two levels in the maturity model versus the bottom two levels in the maturity model. Usually the top performers are 3 times higher performance, 4 times higher performance. These numbers are another order of magnitude higher. So if you're not dynamic, you're going to pay the price. And let me give you an example. And I just put this together this morning because of Netflix's numbers yesterday. We went down and visited Netflix last summer, or during our Irresistible conference. We met with the management team. They came to the conference, and we talked to them about how they run their company. Netflix just added 13 million new subscribers in Q4. Their revenue grew by $8.8 billion. They are now worth $244 billion. Their price to earnings ratio is 45. Their revenue per employee is almost twice that of Google, almost 2.5 times that of Meta, like significantly higher than their media company competitions. How do they do it? Well, read this page on their website about the culture. This is a company that thrives on meritocracy, on mobility, on feedback, on inclusion, on agility, on data central decisions. And when you meet them, you feel it. I mean, we were there, we met them. These are hardworking, respectful, smart people, and they are delivering. And this is the kind of thing we're going to have to think about in our organizations throughout the year. Now, let me talk about AI. I have been in the technology area since the late 70s, and I was around for the mainframe era, the PC era, the client server era, it was the web, then it was the cloud, mobile, and now this. I think AI is as big as the internet itself. I think the implications of this are so massive in our ability to manage data in companies and to do data management analytics, our ability to manage textual information, graphical information, creative processes, decision-making, and so forth. PwC thinks it's $15.7 trillion. It's massive, and it's going to affect everything. It touches every area of HR, and the reason it does is because most of what we do in HR, and I know this as well as you guys do, is help people make decisions about people where there is no right answer or wrong answer. Should I promote this person? Should I promote that person? Does this person get a level 3 or level 4? What is the right development path for this person? Why is this group underperforming? Why is this leader successful and that leader is not successful? We can debate this stuff all day. You can read books on psychology. You can have different models and call experts. Ultimately, it's a difficult answer. And using AI, we can collect more data and we can make more sense than ever before. I'm not saying people analytics is going away, but people analytics is going to look pretty slow and behind when these things are making decisions based on vast amounts of data and AI-based modeling. And I know this because I've worked with the talent intelligence vendors, and our tool Galileo basically does this. And so you can see all the implications it's going to have over the next year. Now, there's also the business side of this. Virtually every business group in your company is also looking at AI, the marketing department, the finance department, the sales, the customer service, the go-to-market people. And so on the one hand, we're going to spend the year working with them, helping them with data management and role design and job design and skills. And then we're going to do the same thing for ourselves. And really, that's why we pioneered Galileo. I started working on Galileo a year ago, and I had to really kind of push it through our company to make sure we were doing it. And now that we have it, and you guys, all of those of you that are corporate members are going to get it, you're going to see the revolutionary way AI can help you manage data, answer questions, and give information to employees that is very difficult for them to find or for us to deliver in a call center ourselves. Now, in the HR tech market, of course, it's also having a huge effect. All of the vendors are adding AI, generative AI modules or features to their systems. But the real big part to me is this green area in the middle. and that is the big AI platforms, the talent intelligence platforms. In many ways, most of the HR tools we've bought over the years are transactional systems. They're workflow transactional systems. They capture data, they put it into a screen, and you run reports. They weren't designed for AI. They weren't designed for massive amounts of data at all. I mean, the architecture was not even considered when they were designing that. Well, these systems in the middle, which I'll talk about in a sec, which started in recruiting, are really becoming the people data systems of companies over time. I mean, in some sense, the talent intelligence system is like the Google of people for your company. Who's ready to be promoted? What is our pay? Is our pay equitable amongst these people? What's the career path for this person? What are the trending skills in our company versus the trending skills in our competitors? This is going to be massive. And so all of the HR vendors, and you know this, you're probably hearing from them, are figuring out how to take advantage of this. It's going to affect everything. It's going to affect employee experience. There's lots and lots of applications there. It's going to affect L&D. I'm going to show you something I call the autonomous learning platform. I think we're going to, sort of wake up and suddenly realize that a lot of the formal education and training we're doing can be done automatically, almost like autonomous driving. All of these things you're going to happen. Recruiting, of course, is massive, and recruiting in some sense has been using AI the longest, because it has been trying to determine the characteristics of people through social information and analyzing that information for a long, long time, and their attractiveness and their potential fit into an organization or a job. Example of this, if you saw Walmart, I talked to Donna Morris about this a week or two ago. Walmart has a very sophisticated IT department. I think most of you would not be able to pull this off as fast as they did, but they basically took their HR technology, which is very, very well put together, and they built a generative AI chatbot. And she told me, which, by the way, can be used for all sorts of things. Galileo is one of these, which you'll see. And she told me that the call center agents that answer calls for health and benefits tend to answer the calls correctly about 70% of the time. What is my benefit for this? What is my benefit for this? What's my option here versus there? She said the AI chatbot is correct 95% of the time. So think about just the call center operations we have in companies to deal with employee issues and how that can be radically changed with AI. And then it's going to change this whole area of data. People analytics is a wonderful domain, and it's been fascinating to be a part of it and really contribute to it. But that's going to go to AI too. And I think, this idea of running a survey, doing an analysis, coming back 3 months later and telling people what you found, that's going to happen in near real time through AI. And we have examples of that too. What about hybrid work? Now, we've talked about this in the beginning. I know a lot of CEOs fought this. They tried to force people to come back to work. We had mandatory 2-day a week come back to the office and so forth. I mean, the reality of this, and all the data shows this, is that when it is done well, employees love it. They love the flexibility. They love the fact that they may not have to commute all the time. They can work at home and take care of their family things that are going on there. And it allows them to manage their lives better. But it creates stress. It creates distance between you and the team and you and the company. It can alienate people. There are lots of young people that want to go back to offices again. So what are we going to do about it? Well, the big problem we really have, and I think this is continuing, and I see this in the PwC story. By the way, let me tell you one more thing. In the PwC survey, another just absolutely staggering thing that came out of that was, of those 2,000 or 3,000 CEOs that were surveyed, they believe on average that 40% of the work in their company is wasted time, is bureaucracy, is inefficiencies. They believe there's a 40% inefficiency in their companies. Number one inefficiency is email. Number two inefficiency is too many meetings. Number three inefficiency, by the way, is recruiting. Number four inefficiency is expense reports. Number five inefficiency is performance management. So, okay, we're responsible for two of those. So we've got this issue with CEOs very aware of the rate of change and the bureaucracy in the company, not believing people are, productive. Yet 87 employees are saying, I'm working really hard. I'm doing everything you asked. I'm delivering on my, promises, and I'm taking on more responsibility this year. 2/3 of them said. So what is going on here? What's going on, of course, is you can't know what's going on in everybody's life in your company unless you're sitting right next to them. And so employees are basically reaching the point because of hybrid work, because of the pandemic, because of the rate of change going on in organizations, where they're saying, if you're not going to listen to me, I'm just going to go call that union guy back. And so all of a sudden, we have more unions and labor strikes than I've ever seen in my career. Now, only 11 or 12% of the United States workforce is in unions, but it's much, much higher in the public sector. And this is growing now. And this is basically an issue of what we now call employee activation. And I want to thank Medallia and also Julia Bersin, who worked with me on this, on really coming up with this concept that it is time to think about how we empower employees and managers and leaders to listen to and accommodate and change the company based on information we're hearing from employees. Now, you've heard me say this before, and I'll say it one more time. I believe employees are the most committed stakeholders you have in the company. Customers will not tell you when they go away why they didn't buy your product. Shareholders can sell their stock and go buy somebody else's stock. Employees are committed to your company. And when they're unhappy about something, or they see a problem, or they think something could be done better, they are doing that because they love the company and they want it to be better. But we make it hard for managers to do anything about that. So you're going to hear a lot about this idea of activating employees and allowing the company to evolve and adapt. Interestingly enough, something like 65 to 70% of employees said in the Edelman Trust survey that they believe they individually can change the company they work in. And if they can't, they are going to go to social media to impact that change. So this is really what we're dealing with here. Now, among the many, many things going on, of course, to deal with this, there's also the 4-day week. And I'll take just 1 minute on this because you can read the report. The 4-day week is not a benefit. Like, you get to take Friday off every 2 weeks so you can go to the dentist. This is an initiative where these companies that have done this have said, let's look at how we do our work, how the schedules of meetings, what kinds of bureaucracy and systems we have, and let's see if we can eliminate 8 hours of work, but still do the same amount of work in 4 days. And what these companies found after, a little bit of work on this, and you can, get our help, or there's some consultants who will help you on this, is you can literally take work teams and reduce the work time. It's called work time reduction, yet get the same amount accomplished. So in a sense, this is a productivity initiative. And I don't think you guys are going to be immune from this. I think many, many of you are going to want to try this. I think it's going to come out of the stories from other organizations. And please call us if you'd like to talk more about it. We've got lots of examples to share. So this issue of hybrid work is real. I wouldn't say it's solved yet, but there's lots and lots of best practices now on what to do. Next topic is leadership. Now, I could talk about leadership till I'm blue in the face. Every year, it seems to be another issue. This year, some things are different, and I want to just give you a quick highlight on this. First of all, if you look at what we do in HR and how it affects companies and what kind of impact it has, we've looked at data from our Global Capability Project. And those of you that are either corporate members or in the JBA, you've probably taken this capability assessment. And so we've had about, 11 or 12,000 HR professionals take it. And if you look at the organizations with that are the highest growth companies, when we have that data in the assessment and also in other sources, what are the HR capabilities that these companies are good at? Well, it turns out the top 3 HR capabilities for the highest performing companies are developing leaders and managers, number 1, change management communications, number 2, and understanding and applying organization design. That's the reason, by the way, we built a super class on organization design, because organization design is very, very important in this evolving, changing world. Well, so impacting leaders is number 1. Of course it is, because the leaders are running the company. And if we can impact them, then all of our great ideas are going to stick and have more impact. And we also know that if you go back in time, and I'm going to show you a little bit about the Jack Welch era, that where we've now landed in leadership is what we call human-centered leadership. And this is based on some research we did during the pandemic. And there's a playbook called the Human-Centered Leadership Playbook. It's part of the big reset, by the way, that Mark talked about earlier. And what it basically shows is that for every single business situation, a good one, a bad one, a complex one, an uncertain one, there is a business way of thinking about it as a leader, and there is a human way of thinking about it as a leader. And where we are today, given the stress in the job market and the number of opportunities people have, we really have to move to the right. Now, the proof of that is, kind of what we found. Now, the historical context, I was just thinking, I just put this chart together yesterday. When I entered this industry in the early 2000s, every company I talked to asked me the same question: how does GE do X? I would talk about, learning or training or succession, or whatever, and they say, how does GE do it? How does GE do it? How does GE do it? Well, because at that point in time, and this was, 25 years ago, we were running the industrial model in our companies. And you can see on the left all of those artifacts or practices or ideas that were written about in Harvard Business Review that we implemented during those years. Today, things are different. We've got all these issues of agility and change and skills shortages and people being able to move between companies and gig work. We have to work on the things on the right. And so this is a post-industrial mindset for leadership. By the way, this book, I'm very proud of it. We would love you guys to read it. It really is a great way to get your head wrapped around these new issues. What we found, though, in the research we just did last year, was that there were three things that really characterized great companies' leadership development practices. Number one is that leaders have to be able to energize change. It isn't enough to just be running the group. You have to know how to change the group, because every group and every team and every function and every organization in every company is going to be impacted by AI. They're going to be impacted by labor shortages, skills changes, et cetera. So if you as a leader can't lead change and facilitate change and create energy out of change, you're not going to end up keeping up. Number two is we've got to relook at our model. The reason to relook at the leadership model is not because it's a fun project, but it gives you a chance to come together as a leadership team with the business group, not just in HR, and talk about what is really working in our company now, what do we keep from our past, and what's new. Most companies have lots and lots of important practices to keep, but some things that have changed. The third, of course, is to lead through behaviors. What we found in this study is it is not necessarily what skills you have or what courses you went to or what books you've read or how much you understand the industry, but what do you do every day? How do you behave? How do you react? Do you listen? Do you mimic or reinforce the behaviors we want in others? So there's lots of things to think about. Unfortunately, the thing that disappointed me last year is the maturity of leadership development programs is still staggeringly low. Only 16% of companies believe they're spending enough money in this area. We discovered, from our research that the amount of money spent on leadership development is down significantly. And you can see, all of these things are relatively low. So there's lots of interesting things to do here. And I'll just leave that up to you to talk about in your teams and decide what changes you want to make. Next thing I want to talk about is skills. So there's been a massive focus on skills technology, skills-based this, skills-based that, skills-based learning, skills-based talent mobility, skills-based recruiting, skills-based pay is coming. Let me tell you where we're at. So there was a lot of excitement about this in the beginning of it when we talked about LXPs and skills-based sourcing and talent marketplaces. And then everybody said, oh no, we're going to put the skills stuff in the ERP. We're going to stick it in the Workday Skills Cloud. We're going to stick it in SAP SuccessFactors. We're going to stick it in Oracle. And everything came to a grinding halt because those systems weren't designed to be AI systems. Those are basically legacy, in a sense, skills databases. And so what we really discovered, and now we're coming out of that trough, really starting now, and we're looking at much more applications. The basic issue with skills is it's everywhere. The technology is everywhere. I mean, there isn't one vendor that has a better skills inference than everybody else. They're all working on it and all doing it in different ways. The real issue is not centralizing it and sitting around and trying to design a global taxonomy, which probably is not worth the effort. It's really applying it to the problem. And this is something we talk about all the time with clients. Fall in love with the problem, not the solution. Skills is a solution to something. What is the thing that you're working on? Is it an underperforming operation? If so, then you're going to want to look at the skills of the high performers and you're going to design your skills solution to uncover the gaps and fill those gaps. Is it a skills gap where we actually don't know something and we're behind? Then we're going to have to bring outsiders, and we're going to have to, bring third-party data into the skills system to figure out what skills we don't know. We don't even know what the skills are that we're missing. Oil companies are going through this, tech companies are through this. Or is it the third one where we just did a merger, we're moving into a new industry, and we're just not set up for it? And there's a whole bunch of stuff we have to deal with. What we find is the most successful skills projects are pragmatic. They are solution-oriented projects. Chevron's doing skills analysis to understand the future roles of energy engineers. Starbucks doing skills analysis to find a better pool of leaders and supervisors and district managers. MasterCard's using skills to do a better job of talent mobility and internal development. Intel is using skills to figure out how to build better chips and advance their manufacturing. New York Presbyterian is trying to use skills to rapidly increase their pipeline of clinical professionals. Baker Hughes is using skills to try to figure out how to move from their oil business to their chemical business. That doesn't require sitting around for 10 years trying to build a corporate taxonomy. Those are pragmatic projects. And that's really, the story there. And you can read more about it and talk to us if you'd like some help. Recruiting. Now, recruiting is very complex. We have a client we're working with right now that has something like 42 recruiting tools in their stack. They're a pretty big company, but you know what this is like. I mean, there's dozens and dozens of tools and companies and vendors on this. We really have to spend some time this year simplifying the technology and modernizing it. Applicant tracking systems, as interesting as they were back in the early 2000s, are really just a commodity at this point. It's really, what level of AI do you have? What is your assessment strategy? Can you speed the candidate experience? Can you reduce the time it takes to get somebody scheduled into an interview? Can you better source people? These are more complex problems. And I think a lot of you that work in bigger companies are dealing with the legacy applications that you have. We also know that it's getting harder. We just published this. We're going to be doing this on a regular basis, working with AMS. The time to hire went up by almost 2 days last year. The number of applicants applying is going up because applicants are using AI tools to spray their applications to hundreds of companies at the same time. So you've got a flood of applicants, longer time to get people through the process. It still takes people on average 5 minutes just to apply for a job, with filling out the forms, creating an account, doing all that kind of stuff. Tools like Paradox and other AI tools are going to revolutionize this. And so there's lots of work to do here. And of course, then there's the implementation of the talent marketplace. Talent marketplace technology has turned out to be exceptionally successful. I think all of you are going to want to do this. This is the link between recruiting and learning and internal development and career and succession management, to tell you the truth. And so where this fits, this is going to be a big theme for next year. It's going to affect recruiting. It's going to affect internal development. It's going to affect L&D, and it's going to affect careers. So lots and lots of things going on in recruiting. And then there's the issue of talent intelligence. Now, we have a talent intelligence primer you can download from our website. This is really a new idea that's only about 5 years old that's really sweeping across the market. And this is the AI layer that I showed you earlier, where you have vast amounts of data at your fingertips to look at the characteristics of all the people in your company and hundreds of millions to billions of people outside your company, to better see what you could be doing differently and where the skills gaps or capability gaps may be between you and the rest of the market and your competitors. And this is generally a technology that starts in recruiting and then expands and moves to different areas of HR. So this is continuing to be bigger and bigger and bigger in 2024. Okay, let me talk about L&D. Now, L&D is where I started in HR, back in the early 2000s. So I've been involved in it for a long time. We've been through a lot of eras. We were in the sort of blended learning era, and then the LMS era with talent-driven learning and competency modeling. Then we were in the digital era, where we kind of stuck everything on YouTube and created a lot of videos and did collaborative learning and crowdsourced learning and internal development and sharing of knowledge. Then we're in the world of learning in the flow of works, micro learning. In fact, we have a micro learning course I'm going to show you in a minute, what you're going to be able to take yourself, and all the work that happened with LXPs and Microsoft entering the market. And now we're entering AI. And believe it or not, I actually kind of think this part of HR is going to be as transformed as recruiting because of AI. And the reason for that is learning is fundamentally a content business. You try to figure out what the problem is. You look for all the content that describes the capabilities and skills and processes that are needed. And you try to build a course that teaches people how to do that stuff better. By the way, that's what AI does. If you look at all the information you have in your process documentation and your LMS, if you put that into an AI system like Galileo, and we've been doing that, people can just ask it questions. It can understand what they're looking for and give them an answer and point them to a video or point them to a course instantaneously. And you don't even have to author that content because the system will do that for you. Now, the tools to do this are coming and they're not all out there yet, but I think this is going to be a massive change. And so those of you that are in L&D are going to have a lot of fun over the next couple of months working on this. And I like to think of this as autonomous learning. The reason I put this chart together is there's a 5-level model for autonomous driving. And if you look at the autonomous driving maturity levels that the NAST uses to basically measure car companies, it's not that different from what's been going on in learning. And you guys know, those of you that have been with me all these years, these 5 history processes actually have happened. And so your L&D teams are going to have some really interesting opportunities to re-engineer and probably replace a lot of those old technologies as this market starts to pick up speed. And I'm very, very convinced this is happening. Okay, and that'll really simplify this huge stack we have of L&D technology. One more thing, and I'm sure a lot of you are dealing with this right now. I'm sure somebody has come to you and said, hey, would you build a course on AI for the rest of the company? What? I mean, come on. AI is not a topic for everybody. There's AI for sales, there's AI for marketing, there's AI for engineering, there's AI for IT. There's trust issues that affect the legal organization. This is the other thing that you have to think about now, is building what we call a capability academy for AI. And we're happy to help you with that because we've been through this process now in many, many other domains. A couple more topics and then I'll wrap up. DEI. So as you know, there's all sorts of political and societal issues fighting the DEI initiatives for years. The number of postings for DEI, Chief Diversity Officers, dropped by 48% last year. I mean, that is just staggering. More than 40 lawsuits have been filed against companies. The educational industry is getting attacked by right-wing people and various other groups that believe DEI is a waste of money. But despite that, the research that we have talking to most of you is that this is not going away. It remains vital to the success of organizations, and it's going to continue. But I think is going to happen this year, and you can read about it in this article and also in the research, is we're going to have to sort of shrink the size of the DEI police force, or whatever you think about as your DEI group, and get it embedded in the business. Because the investments in DEI and where we go over the top and try to teach people about oppression or slavery or whatever it may be that you think is the history of all this isn't really sticking well right now with people. So I'm not convinced that this is going to go away. I think we're going to see more and more focus on it. In fact, there's an article in the Wall Street Journal just yesterday that's very much in keeping with my thinking. But we're going to have to be sensitive to it because those of you that are in DEI jobs are going to hear a lot of noise. One more thing, pay and performance. Now, performance management is too complicated for me to talk about. It's a never-ending discussion, but the area that I think we're going to have to think more about in 2024 is pay equity. As you can read about in our research, and Kathy Enderis has done just a masterful job of talking about this and teaching people about it, it isn't an issue of how much you make, it's how fairly you're paid. When we did this research, we found that it is 31 times more important to have a pay equity strategy than it is to pay people more money. Of course, people want more money. Everybody wants more money, but they really want it to be done in a fair way. And we don't know if we're paying people fairly if we have years of old performance reviews, raises that were, distributed unequally based on the politics of performance management. And so the discipline for this year and going forward is to do pay equity audits, look at the statistical correlation, and really take this problem seriously. And as you can see in our research, there's lots of ways to do this, and yet the level of maturity remains low. So that's another one that I think to think about this year. And the final thing before I talk about the report is HR. And a lot of you know we introduced our systemic HR research around November, December. And the reason we did that is everybody was telling us about all these projects and initiatives and tools and systems and things they were trying to do in HR. And we realized that operating model just isn't what it used to be. And just yesterday or earlier this week, I was on the phone with MasterCard, and we're walking through how they've changed their operating model. The history of HR is, of course, functional. We really built the HR profession around lots of individual specialist jobs that grew over time. This is like a tree. I think of it as a tree where, in the early days of HR, it was mostly payroll and benefits, and then it was legal, and then it was safety, and then it was operations. And you can see if you go around this tree, sure enough, all of these domains kind of popped into the world of HR over time. Well, where we are now, of course, is that the problems we're dealing with are very interconnected. We can't think of these as a specialist for this, a specialist for this. Most of the problems we have require many or all of those disciplines together. So we have to think about the HR function as almost a professional services group with a set of products and offerings and a set of services for employees. And that's dramatically different from where we are. We call that systemic HR. We also know, by the way, that when you do that, and when you improve the capability of the HR professionals in the company, the revenue goes up. This is a statistical correlation of 4 categories of companies: high growth companies, medium, low growth, and no growth companies, relative to their HR capabilities. Green is good to excellent, and our capability model, blue, is world-class. And you can see the fast growth companies are twice as likely to have highly skilled HR people. And that's not an accident. That's because a lot of these decisions on who to hire and who to promote and how to pay people and how to reward people and how to create a great culture and org design are really done through the skills and expertise that you guys have. So this remains a continued issue this year, to say nothing of all the work we have to do to learn about AI. So how do you get this stuff? Essentially, there are 4 real deliverables here. There's the report, which includes a 2024 planning checklist. It's about 40 pages long. It is available to members of our academy and corporate members. There is the infographic, which all of you can get for free, which is available through a link you'll see at the end of this report. And then there is a course we built. We built a micro-learning course that is a fascinating, relatively easy lift you can take on your PC. It's free. You can scan this or type this in your phone. You can run it on your phone under SMS or on WhatsApp. For those of you that are not members of the JBA, I'm not telling you to join the JBA just to get this report. There's way more in the JBA. The JBA, as you can see here, has 25 certificate courses. We put a lot of our research in here. It has 90 primers on various parts of HR, tools, ideas. There are more than 60 or 70,000 HR professionals that have come through here. So I encourage you to check it out as part of thinking about the predictions, because in addition to reading about the predictions and sort of grappling with all this stuff, you might want to learn about it and see what other people are saying. And if you're not a corporate member, the JBA is a really simple, easy, affordable way for you to get into this information. So I think we are in for a very, very exciting, important year ahead. I think the role of HR is going to be escalated and elevated even further. And I couldn't be more thankful and excited that so many of you joined us today. We're going to be going to virtually every conference around the world. We always like to talk to you. And, I really want to thank you for coming and paying attention. Terry, let's go back to you and tell me what kind of questions people have.
Okay, thank you, Josh. We have had an amazing amount of energy in the chat. We are using the Q&A function. So the first question that has been upvoted from Caroline Clark is, are we seeing any differences globally related to burnout? As an example, is it more prevalent in the US versus Germany, for instance, or is this across the globe?
It is worse in the US and Asia than it is in Europe, believe it or not. I think the reason for that is the European countries are more mature and older. There's more social services, there's more unions, there's more understanding of the balance between work and economic life. I feel like the United States is like a teenager, just keep pushing all the time to go a little bit harder, and we're a little bit hard on ourselves with it. But I think it varies by company. I think the bigger variation is not the global issue, it's the companies. There's a body of research we have called the Healthy Organization that walks through the issues in mental health and well-being. And basically what it shows is that, a lot of the issues in well-being have to do management culture. Are the goals, do we have too many stretch goals? Are we listening to people? Is it an inclusive company? Those are much bigger factors than the geography.
Great. Thank you, Josh. Okay, the next question. How do you recommend that we train leaders to effectively manage in this environment, as many of their skills need to be developed or improved?
Well, you saw the research and you can read more on that. I think there's two very simple things. Number one is leaders need to take care of themselves. Leaders are under even more stress than employees, because the leaders are thinking about the job they have, plus taking care of all the people around them. So I think you need programs for leader support, leader development. The second is connecting leaders together. I think what happens in most companies, and this is true in my career, is the problem that you're facing in your group, your department, your store, whatever it is actually not that different than the guy down the road who's got the same group you do in a different department. And so bringing leaders together at the same level, peers, to talk to each other is another really simple way to give leaders the perspective on how to deal with some of these, human-centered issues that everybody's facing. And then there's thousands and thousands of courses, and I won't mention all of them, but those are the two biggest things I'd recommend.
Right. Okay. How do you see the increasing number of war conflicts impacting world companies and people functions in particular?
War conflicts. We had some guys from Ukraine at the conference last year. Obviously, if you're doing business in Israel or Ukraine or, parts of Palestine, you have huge issues. You have employees that are under attack. You have people that don't have homes. You have people that don't have food. You have people that are worried. You need to take care of that first. But, those human life or death survival issues are at the bottom of Maslow's pyramid. And honestly, that's not stuff a lot of HR people were designed to do, but we have to do it. I talked to the CHRO of Oracle last year, and she said, I asked her, what are you guys working on? She said, the number one thing I did was worry about Ukraine, because we had a lot of business in Russia and we had to shut it down. We had employees there, we had engineering teams there, so that's the main thing. And then there's the issue of sort of the social stress that people have debating them. And I don't think, most business leaders want to take a position on Israel versus Palestinians and so forth, but they need to, reflect and sort of tell people that, look, I know this is a big topic. You can talk about it in your ERGs. We as an organization may or may not take a position on it, but we understand that there are differences, and we want you to be nice and inclusive to each other as we discuss these issues, because there are no rights and wrongs here, even though, you may be on one side or the other.
Yes, it's a very complex environment we're operating in. I think we've got time for one more question. As AI advances, could it reach a point where it surpasses human intelligence in HR decision making?
Okay, I was just listening to, Zuckerberg is talking about it again and all the AI guys. By the way, I have a list of podcasts for those of you who want to know what the podcasts are listed to. I don't think AI is going to be smarter than humans. That's my own personal opinion. I mean, I know how it works. I know what it does. It's very fast at assimilating and analyzing and predicting information. You have to really remember that we are actually emotional beings.
Mhm.
I mean, our emotions actually rule us. Most of us are not that logical. I mean, we have logical moments, but under the covers of the logical is, how do I feel about this? Do I like this person? Is this a threat? Is this good? Is this bad? Am I in a good mood? Did I get enough sleep? Did I not get enough sleep? And that's what makes us what we are. I don't think AI is going to build, the world's best art, the world's best movies. I mean, you look at, I was just listening to the founder of Pixar, who was in a podcast. He said, look, he said, AI is going to make all of these characters easy to build. We're going to build animations and cartoons. It's going to be great. But we need stories. The AI doesn't come up with the stories. We come up with the stories. And the stories are human stories. And that goes, by the way, for sales, for marketing, for product design. I mean, there are huge sort of human nature things that happen in organizations that I don't think AI is going to do. So I'm not worried about that myself.
Great. We are at time, so thank you everybody for your engaging questions, Q&A. As mentioned in the chat, you will be receiving the recording and the infographic in the next few days. And with that, I wish you a very successful 2024. Thank you all.
Thank you, Terry. Bye, everybody.